I'm really excited about the special guest that I have coming on tonight. We have Tracy Rogers, the astrologer extraordinaire. She's amazing. But before we even get into that, I just wanted to introduce myself to the new folks. I want to say hello. If you are watching, if you could please let me know whether you're watching on YouTube or on Facebook, and actually type in where you're watching from, the city and state if you're in the US, or the country if you're outside of the US. Let me know that you guys are here. Okay, I see people starting to log on, but I can't quite see I don't see the comments yet. So go ahead and post your comment. Let me know where you're coming from. Sometimes it takes a couple seconds to show up on my screen as the host, but let me know where you're calling from. Oh, I see Jamila Miller, my namesake. What's up, Jamila? In Hilton Head, South Carolina on Facebook. Actually, yeah, tell me what city and state you're from and what your sign is. What's your astrological sign, your zodiac sign, because we're going to have our astrologer coming on tonight. I see Floyd and Zareta in New York City. Ashley's in Omaha, Nebraska. Amy is in Buffalo. What's up, Amy? Eugene Sanford, hey, in College Park, Maryland. Inspired by Nature is in Washington, D.C. Kitty Russell, thanks for showing up, Kitty, from Arlington, Virginia, is on YouTube. And Sarah, what's up, Sarah, from Bluffton, South Carolina. Hey, love. Darius and Orlando. Andrea D'Souza here in Barbados. What's up, Andrea? Jamila says she's Pisces. Eugene says Gemini. Amy says Aries in the house. Happy birthday to all the Aries. Yes. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do. And I see Karen from New York, Libra. Marissa is Buffalo, New York. So, oh, wow, lots of folks have just joined in. We got about 50 people already here. Here's what I'm going to ask you to do. I'm glad everybody can hear me. I'm glad the technology is working so far. And if you wouldn't mind, please hit the share button, especially if you're on Facebook, to invite your friends to be part of this discussion. Let them know that we are here live, and it's going to be live. We're going to have a great time. So let me just introduce myself. Oh, wow, we've got Australia in the house. Christine is here, and Jeannie is here, and Gabby is here. Georgine is here. I see a lot of South Carolina and a lot of New York State in here. What's up, Dawn? Gidget, Pat, Miss Pat, Reverend Pat is here. Mwah, 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 smooches. Sade and Veronica is in Mexico. She's a Scorpio. Janice Snow, Cancer. Hey, what's up, Team Cancer? We always know Cancer. Anyway, let me introduce myself. For those who are new, my name is Jamila White. I'm an international psychic medium. Right now, I am based in Barbados. I'm from the Washington, D.C. area in the States. I've been in Barbados now just shy of 5 months. And everybody's saying, are you coming back? Honestly, I don't know. I'm coming back home for a visit for a while this spring, but I'm probably turning around and coming right back to Barbados for another while. I'm really loving it here. I cannot complain. Barbados makes everything better. The ocean, the people, it's just amazing. Even when Barbados was on a national pause, a modified lockdown, it was still really awesome. And relatively speaking, the COVID rates are really low. So I'm loving it here. I don't see any reason for me to be anywhere else right now. And Courtney's here from New Orleans. Hey, Bianca and Charlotte, Elizabeth Ann, and from Philly, and Valerie Keys, Aries from South Carolina, Tara from Grand Rapids, Michigan, and Leo. You know what? I could be putting these on the screen. Why am I not doing that? All right, Dawn Cleary is Capricorn. Hey, Tanya. Thank you, Jeannie. Think I got a new hairdo. Cam from Wisconsin, Team Taurus. All right, so I just want to, as we are getting started, if you haven't done so already, please let us know where you're connecting from and where you, what your zodiac sign is. Emily Jordan says, hello from the UK. Doreen says, New York. Cam says, Wisconsin. Is that Leo? I don't know all the symbols. I can't remember what that is. Gidget says she's so tired of the snow. She would love island life. Yes, manifested. I manifested this. I put it out into the universe more than 10 years ago, and painted my accent wall turquoise blue, the color of the Caribbean Sea. Like I'm calling this into my life in any form, and now I'm here. It's the way I got here surprised me, but that's a conversation for another day. Rachel's from New Zealand, Capricorn. We are international, y'all. Marissa is Capricorn. Gemini, Texas, Jeannie is here. Hey, Lark. Lark was in Barbados. She's from DC, but we met in Barbados. She's back in the States in Atlanta. What's up, Lark? Miss you too. Sharon in Norfolk, Team Aquarius. Selenia, Baltimore, Aquarius. Ahene, Gemini, DC. We got a lot of Geminis in here. Capricorn, Aria from New York. Okay. All right, so we're going to do more shout outs from time to time. Oh, we got 100 people in here. All right, between the two, YouTube and the Facebook. This is awesome. Friday night. Yay. Friday. What's up, Sora Joyce from Silver Spring, Maryland is a Virgo. Karina Smith, New York City Scorpio. She said a candy corn lover. Inside joke, because I can give people a hard time about candy corn. Kimya from DC, Maryland, Virginia area. Nikki is Gemini in DC. Christina says she is Scorpio in Australia. Mom, you're here. My mom is here. She just had a birthday this week. Mom is an Aries, March 23rd, and she's in St. Helena Island, South Carolina. Floyd is giving us his whole breakdown. He's Sagittarius with Capricorn rising in Baltimore, Maryland, and he's an extraordinary DJ. If you need a virtual DJ or an in-person DJ, Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Virginia area, hit Floyd up. He even travels if you make it worth his while. Hey, Danielle, Maryland, Libra. Kate is Aries. Natalia is Leo. Kelly is Baltimore. Scorpio, she says. Okay, yes. Crystal is Taurus. Okay, so we got lots and lots of people in here. I want to introduce a really special guest. She's been on my live stream twice before. We always have a great time. We always end up losing track of time, and the questions you guys give are awesome. She is a professional astrologer, certified life coach, activist, and writer, serving clients throughout the city of Philadelphia, nationally and abroad. Some of you may have seen her on national TV just recently on the CBS Sunday Morning Show. Hey, I hope Tracy remembers us when she makes it super, super big, because that's where she's going. She's also been featured on Oprah.com and Martha Stewart Weddings, among others, and on the Washington, D.C. and nationally syndicated Russ Parr Morning Show. Without further ado, I want to introduce to you my friend and one of my favorite astrologers, Miss Tracy Rogers. Let's see what we get here. She's coming up on. What's up? What's up? What's up, Tracy? I forgot to put all this other stuff I'm supposed to be putting up on the screen, these other words. Where am I? Hold on for a second. Let me get it together. I'm so busy doing introductions and whatnot. I need to get Tracy's name up on the screen. First, I got to put my name on the screen. Hey. And my website is inspiredjamila.com, but I want to put Tracy's name up here so that we can all see Tracy Rogers, astrologer. Awesome. Okay, so.
Hi, everybody.
Yeah, Tracy, if you can get a little closer to your mic, that would be even better.
Yeah, sure. Sorry. Is this better? Hopefully this is
better. That's much better. Much better.
Good.
So we have a lot to talk about because it's been a while since we did a live broadcast.
Yeah.
And we got more and more people coming in. Don't forget to hit the share button to let people know that you're here, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube or whatever. I see Jamari and Raven and Kelly and Queen of Sheba. Hey, Raynell is in here. Zoe is in here. Zoe. So, okay. So there's been a lot that has happened, because the last time we talked, you were talking about all the stuff happening in the United States and the upcoming election and all the energy of upheaval in the United States and in the world. Mm-hmm. And so I want to ask you, first, I want to get an update. So since we've had a huge transition in government and elections with the United States, what's going on astrologically as far as the new administration and this new direction, new energy that's happening in the country right now?
Yeah. Well, first, thank you so much for inviting me back. I always love our Friday night chats on Facebook Live.
I know, aren't they fun?
Because they're always a lot of fun. And as far as, what's happening now, the direction now, the last time we spoke, I explained how there were a lot of different cosmic events all happening simultaneously that were, simultaneously bringing this unrelenting feeling of upheaval throughout all of 2020. A
Mhm.
lot of those cosmic influences have begun to break apart. And so that's not to say we're out the clear, but it is to say that 2021 just energetically feels a lot different from 2020. And I think a lot of people can sense that already, especially with 45 out of the White House. I think a lot of people are starting to catch their breath in 2021.
Okay.
This is the year we get our sea legs because there still is an influence in effect that sees a lot of restructuring happening around life as we know it, a lot of changes that are happening. But this year has a strong Aquarius feel to it. And
Okay.
so when it comes to innovation, when it comes to thought leadership, when it comes to envisioning a different future, a different world, that's what this year looks like because now we know what we know. We can't unknow it. And the Biden and Harris administration are a big part of what this new kind of renaissance looks like in 2021. So that's what we can expect this year.
So you mentioned something that this time period really has like an Aquarius feel.
Mm-hmm.
Are we technically in the age of Aquarius from an astrological standpoint?
You know, there are a lot of different astrologers who have different viewpoints and opinions on this. I would say no, we're not in the age of Aquarius. I think everybody feels this way because we had that great conjunction in December on winter solstice where the planets Jupiter and Saturn moved into the sign of Aquarius together. And there's usually a great conjunction between Saturn and Jupiter every 20 years. So this is a common occurrence between these two planets. A conjunction is when you have planets that are in the same sign at about a, really super 5 to 8 degree orb. So Saturn and Jupiter link up this way every 20 years. But the reason why this is such a big deal, and I think this is why folks are calling this the age of Aquarius, is because the last time Saturn and Jupiter linked up in the sign of Aquarius was in the 15th century. And so it was during that time when we were coming out of the dark ages, and I would say 2020 felt like the dark ages, and
Okay.
moving into this period of awakening, this period of enlightenment. And so that's what this period is. It really is this kind of rebirth. Now that we've gone through these laboring pains throughout 2020, we're giving birth to something new, a new vision in 2021.
So you mentioned something, a phrase, I think you said grand conjunction.
Mm-hmm.
What is a grand conjunction
Mm-hmm.
exactly?
So it's a great conjunction, and
A great conjunction.
yeah. So a conjunction in astro terms happens when planets in the sky come together in the same sign within about a 5 to 8 degree orb. So they literally look like they're right next to each other. And
Okay.
in fact, we had a conjunction of Pluto and Saturn in the sign of Capricorn at the start of 2020 last year. And that was what kicked off that crazy year. The great conjunction, however, happens between the planets Saturn and Jupiter. And these great conjunctions happen every 20 years. And the reason why it's significant is because, Saturn is this planet of restriction and limitation. Jupiter is this planet of abundance. Together they work really well. It's a period that ushers in a time of a lot of growth, a lot of change, a lot of development, a sense of hope that is restored in ways that are grounded, anchored in reality and long-term success. And these are the influence that come up with Saturn and Jupiter forming that great conjunction. This is happening in an air sign. And it's been a while since this conjunction happened in the element of air. I want to say the last time it happened in the element of air was in the sign of Libra back in the 80s. And so the element of air is this cerebral, logical, thinking, nuanced energy. And so that's why this year is going to feel like this kind of great awakening as we move through it.
So when you say great awakening, does that mean like there's a lot of new ideas or new technology, or what does that relate to when you say the air signs and
Yeah,
that? What does that mean?
it's both. A lot of new ideas, a lot of new technology. But I think what also this looks like is each of us thinking outside of the box.
Okay.
And so now that we're aware of what's possible after what we experienced last year, we're all going to be thinking in more nuanced ways of how we can be better and do better and live better in this society. And so it's going to be just this experience of considering all that's possible now that we know what is possible after a year like last year.
When you say a year like last year, what do you mean? What happened last year? No, I'm just kidding. 2020 was very intense for a lot
Yeah.
of people.
Oh yeah.
And we have, there are two other recordings. You can find them on my Facebook page for those of you who missed them last spring and last summer, where Tracy and I went into depth about what was happening astrologically that made 2020 such an intense experience for people on an individual level and on a national and world level. I want to also welcome all the folks who have just joined us. If you just logged in, if you wouldn't mind just shouting out what city and state or country you're coming from and what your zodiac sign is if you haven't already. And be sure to hit that share button. Let people know that we're here. They can join in the discussion. And if you even need to tag some people, tag them in the comments, get them in here, because you know you have a bestie who's always talking about astrology. Everybody in here knows a Virgo who's always talking about astrology. Why are there so many Virgos in the world? That's a whole other conversation. So when you talked about the Biden administration or the Biden and Harris administration, one of the things that you had mentioned last year was that a lot of the astrological configurations pointed to some ending of patriarchal structures and power structures. And here we have in the US, the first female vice president of the United States. Well, who happens to have attended Howard University, my alma mater. You know, for anybody that knows Howard University alumni, you know we can't just mention another famous alum and not like shout out the Mecca, HU. You know, I know I've seen some of the names in the comments. I know some other Howard folks are up in here. Let me see you, fellow Bison. Okay. I had to say that. I am not just a Howard alum, but I'm a second generation. Both of my parents went to Howard University. My older sister also graduated from Howard University. I have an aunt who has a graduate degree from Howard University, and my younger sister attended Howard University for a while before she switched majors and had to go to another school. But that's okay.
It's you.
All right, so we were talking about the astrological stuff that pointed towards some of the end of patriarchy, and we saw a lot of upheaval around that. And then we had the election of the Biden-Harris administration. Is there anything? Is that configuration still ongoing? Has that part ended? Is that like a theme for the next couple of years, or what was going on with that has to do with gender and a return to feminine power and some balance and equity between masculine energy and feminine energy?
That's a good question. Well, I think what's interesting to note is that the start of 2020 began with a full moon in the sign of Cancer, and Cancer is the matriarch of the zodiac.
Okay.
This sign really embodies the divine feminine goddess. And 2020 also ended with a full moon in the sign of Cancer. So even though there was all that stuff that happened in between these two lunations, that Cancer energy was really kind of pertinent throughout the entire year and never left us, because we ended the year with this, woman, this first female elected vice president of the United States. So we had that Cancer protection around us all year, even if it wasn't as blatant and obvious as more, masculine energy can be, more patriarchal energy can be. As far as the question with the configuration, so this was that Pluto-Saturn conjunction last year in the sign of Capricorn. If Cancer is the matriarch of the zodiac, Capricorn is this patriarchal energy. And in fact, these two signs are opposite on the zodiac wheel. And so Capricorn energy is known for its power and systemic approach to reaching broader aims and ambition. So this is a strongly dominant kind of force. And with Pluto and Saturn next to each other in the sign of Capricorn, there was this simultaneous breaking down, which happens courtesy of the planet Pluto, this planet of transformation, and rebuilding, which happens courtesy of the planet Saturn, this planet of work and effort. And so that configuration, interestingly, broke apart I want to say around the 14th, which was when the election results were certified in Congress. We saw Saturn zip into the sign of Aquarius, leaving Pluto behind in the sign of
Okay.
Capricorn. And so it was around that time when this shift really started to cement itself. That said, Pluto is still in the sign of Capricorn. And so this is still going to be a year of the crumbling and the restructuring of patriarchal norms and systems and societies. We're still going to see a lot of that. We're still going to see a lot of resistance to it as well. But there's this simultaneous, more feminine approach that's anchoring us as we move forward into this year.
Okay, so what do we have to look forward to? What can we expect for the energy carrying throughout the year? Especially, I know we're going to talk about the spring, but what about after the spring? Just kind of what's the energy snapshot for the United States and just the energy in general for the year 2020? Especially, we had people who were just like, first 2020 needs to be over, and then 2021 kind of started off with a bang. Especially,
we were all like, wait a minute. We thought this year ended. Did it carry over?
That's exactly what we're saying. They were like, what is going on? You know, we had an armed insurrection at the U.S. Capitol and whatnot.
And one of the things I said to you is that even though, I mean, I said this in another Facebook Live event, that I was very confident and hopeful that President Trump would not be reelected. But I also said that we're still going to see a lot of resistance and uprising after that election. And that's exactly what happened. So yeah, everyone was like, you know, hold the phone. Wait a minute. We thought this year ended. But as far as the feel this year, so this is a strongly this year has a strong elemental vibe to it, the element of air. And the way I like to think of this, especially when we look at the chart of the United States, it's a deep breath. Finally, we can breathe a little bit. Finally, I mean, literally and figuratively, like we can be outside now that vaccinations are underway. We can, you know, pay attention to our blood pressure now that 45 is out of the office. There's an adult that's running things right now in the White House. And so there's this collective sigh of relief, this collective exhale that we're going to be experiencing throughout the year here in this country. With that Aquarius feel to it, I think a lot of us are going to be testing limits. We're definitely going to see how far we can push boundaries this year. This is for those that are trying to maintain some level of power, as well as those who are trying to flip the status quo. And so there still will be this kind of conflict between the New World Order and the Old Guard. We're still going to see that this year. But there's also going to be this stronger feeling and sense of humanity and community and how we care for each other and how we support each other. I think everyone just witnessed so much selfish motivations throughout 2020 from our leaders in office. And so this is a year that feels strongly communal. And that's going to be a big theme that plays out throughout 2021.
Okay, so aside from the theme of the communal, of the Aquarius, of the exhale, are there any big astrological things for the year that are like really major that we kind of need to pay attention to? And then after that, we're going to talk about what's going on for this spring. But what do we need to pay attention to astrologically for this year?
So I love that question because the real answer is not much. And I love that. Like that just makes me feel good.
That's good. Last year, it's like, yeah, let's just don't rock the boat. We just need to catch our breath after all of that.
Because last year, asking that same question, there was too much that we needed to pay attention to because there was a lot going on. This year feels like night and day from last year, a complete 180. That said, probably the biggest configuration to watch is between the planet Saturn and Uranus. Right now, Uranus is moving through the sign of Taurus. Uranus in astrology is this planet that brings a lot of disruption. It's a planet that is synonymous with like 7-year cycles that beg the need for some change and, you know, flipping of status quo. And Taurus is an earth sign that values stability and predictability and comfort. So when you put Uranus in the sign of Taurus, it does bring a shakeup to our comfort, our values, what makes us feel stable, what makes us feel safe. And we saw this really unfold last year, looking at our financial systems here in the country and the economies and the shakeup to, how we were able to provide for ourselves, provide for our families. So that is still in effect this year. And then you have Saturn in the sign of Aquarius, which is this innovative, rebellious kind of energy, trying to introduce new reforms and new policies and new experiences that, again, see us living life a little differently. And so, with these two planets in these two signs, there's going to be a lot of friction, in other words, because Saturn in Aquarius is going to want to be forceful in introducing change. Uranus and Taurus is going to be a lot of resistance to that change. And so, we're going to see this tension play out throughout the year.
So when you say friction, how does that friction and tension show up? Like, is that more governmental stuff? Is it more like world tension? Or is it on all levels? How does that actually show up?
It's on all levels and in our own personal lives. So examples would be we're talking about gun reform, right? And especially with the two mass shootings that we just endured in less than a week. I mean, a few days apart from one another. Imagine Saturn in Aquarius as, our congressman trying to introduce gun reform, and Uranus and Taurus as the big gun lobbyists that are trying to keep things the same, right? Or when we talk about getting back to the regular day-to-day of life, now that these vaccinations are underway, this need for people to go back into the office, work in the office, get back into that routine, versus folks who are like, I don't want to go back to the office. Now that I know I can work from home, why would I do this? Can we find innovative ways for me to do work that don't require me to commute to an office building? So that's what I mean when I say that's what a lot of this tension looks like on macro levels as well as in our own personal lives.
Okay, well, that makes sense. So we want to talk about spring because just this week we had the spring equinox, or at least in the northern hemisphere. In Australia, they just had the fall equinox.
Mm-hmm.
Much love to all my Aussie friends out here. And so what does that mean when we have an equinox and we change it to the seasons? Is it more than just the changing of the weather patterns in the seasons? What does that mean astrologically? And then also, what is different about spring 2021?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What's different about this year in the springtime and the spring equinox and the planetary movements as opposed to previous, well, non-2020 years, because that's just an exception to everything. But what's significant about spring in general, and what's going on for spring this year?
The spring begins the zodiac calendar. Every time we enter the sign of Aries, we're starting a new zodiac new year. And so that's the significance in and of itself. Aries, hey to all the Aries out there. Happy birthday to all the Aries out there.
Yes, happy birthday, Aries.
Yeah, this is an initiating force. Aries is a sign that is ready to dive in head first, pursue, act, aggress, anything that allows the sign to self-actualize and bring to fruition independent goals, independent agendas. That's what Aries represents in astrology. And so that's why the kickoff to the zodiac calendar, coinciding with the spring season up here in the north, really feels like this burst of energy, this fresh air that allows us to come out of the winter slumber and start anew. So that's the significance of spring, generally speaking. It kicks off the zodiac calendar year. Meanwhile, all of the seasons are started by cardinal signs. So the cardinal signs in astrology are Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. Every time we enter Aries season, we begin the season of spring. When we enter Cancer season, we begin the season of summer. Libra coincides with fall, Capricorn coincides with winter. So these are the cardinal signs that represent important shifts when we think of not just weather patterns, but life cycles, right? Because spring is when we come out to plant seeds. Summer is when we begin to cultivate the land. Fall is when we begin to reap what we sow. Winter is when everything dies and we go back under to be reborn and start anew. So each season is connected to one of these cardinal signs, these cardinal points. And that's why the seasons themselves are so significant. They really reflect life cycles.
Okay.
Now, this particular season, if anything, is exciting and feels buzzworthy because we've had the past 4 seasons hijacked from us, including spring in 2020. And so spring literally has sprung. I mean, not only are we all able to go outdoors, we're coming out of a winter that was interestingly pretty harsh out here on the East Coast. Really throughout the country, there were some pretty awful storms throughout this winter season. And so there's that. There's also the fact that, again, we've got this new administration. And so the world literally is kind of pumped for this new zodiac calendar.
So there was the spring being the season of renewal, and basically the beginning of the astrological year, being at this the first sign with Aries. You mentioned before that there's a lot of planets in Aries this year, or this time, and what does that mean? What are the planets that are in Aries right now?
Yeah.
And how does that affect those born under the sign of Aries? And then also, how does that affect the rest of us to have all of the energy under and behind the sign of Aries? What does that mean?
So right now, the sun is in the sign of Aries. The planet Venus is in the sign of Aries. Mercury is about to enter the sign of Aries. And the reason why all of this is so important is because for the latter half of 2020, Mars was in the sign of Aries.
Okay.
And so this was a force of activity that really brought a lot of heightened passions and emotions that we saw collectively throughout the summer and into the end of this year. And so as all of these planets begin to ingress Aries now, they're going over old territory that Mars went through last year. And so we're going to see this resurgence of activity centering these passionate aims, protests for racial justice, for example, activities that focus on how we are asserting ourselves when it comes to our own personal lives, advocating for certain rights. These are things that are going to be sparked up again with greater renewal as we move through the spring season. And so that's why this is so significant, because all of these planets are just going over old territory that Mars kind of, shook up for us last year.
So, okay, this is a non-forecast type question. Who's your favorite Aries, whether it's somebody famous or non? Who's your personal favorite Aries?
I have two, well, I guess I should say three. They're all family members. My sister, my niece, and then my great niece. They're all my favorite Aries.
My favorite Aries is my mom, of course, born on March 23rd. Okay, so I want to ask you, because people always bombard me in the private messages when we do this. What do you do? What services do you offer? How can people get in touch with you? And what's it like to work with you? What is it for someone who's never had an astrology reading before? What's that like? And then we're going to start taking some questions from the audience too.
Okay, cool. So I work as a consulting astrologer and a certified life coach. And what that looks like is me regularly meeting with folks that are looking for astrological guidance or some kind of coaching when it comes to life events. As an astrologer, my practice, my divination tool are the planets and the stars in the universe. And so what I do is I look at planet alignments in the sky to interpret how people's lives are being affected here on planet Earth. That's what I do as an astrologer. Coaching is similar to therapy, but not exactly therapy, in the sense that a therapist is someone that you go to when you're wanting to uncover some past life events, like not past lives, but past events in your life. Although there are therapists that do past life regressions. So when you go to a traditional therapist, you are unpacking a lot of stuff from your past, overcoming trauma, learning things about yourself, becoming more aware, increasing consciousness. Whereas with coaching, it's very much, I actually know where I am and where I want to be focused, and I need some help and some guidance and some support in what that looks like tangible plans of action. And so that's what I do as a coach. And the beauty of combining the two is that when you're coming for an astrology reading, you're getting a whole lot of information. And then the coaching is, well, now that I have this information, how do I empower myself with it going forward? So that's how I blend the two practices.
So we have someone in here giving you a testimonial. Queen of Sheba, also known as Tanisha, says Tracy is amazeballs, and I agree, because anyone can get a chart done on the internet. There's free sites that give you your chart, but actually being able to interpret the chart and how these different elements come in together is what a professional astrologer can do. And and the coaching of, okay, so what do you do with this information is where the life coaching comes in. And I've had many, many readings with Tracy. I do it at least once a year, usually around my birthday, as a present to myself to get the astrological forecast for my calendar and for my birthday year from birthday to birthday. So I wanted to we're going to go off the cuff a little bit. Let me get some questions from.
Okay.
And I want to preface this by saying this isn't like the on-the-spot psychic reading stuff where you just say, my name is so-and-so, here's my sign, and then ask Tracy a question about your personal life. That's not how this works, because in order to do astrology, she needs to actually look at and study your chart. However, you can ask a general questions about something for your whole sign, like what's going on with, Libras and love life in general. Or you can ask, which is even better for all of us, if you ask a question about astrology, that she can answer and educate and enlighten all of us to what is going on or what those different concepts means. Someone earlier today, when we first came on, I didn't see who it was, but she was asking a question about, do you use, quote, whole house astrology? And so tell us what is that? What is whole house astrology?
Yeah.
And do you use it?
Yeah. So in astrology, you have 12 zodiac signs, and you also have what's referred to as the 12 astrological houses. And the houses in astrology basically describe different areas of life. So the first house, for example, tells the story of how you will grow and evolve and, become the individual that you're meant to be, what that process looks like for you. The second house in astrology tells the story of how you're able to create a sense of comfort and stability and safety for yourself in life, what you value. Third house is your smarts, your intelligence. Fourth house tells the story of home and family. So each of the 12 astrological houses describe different experiences in life, tell the story of what your experiences will be in different areas of life. And when you are creating an astrological birth chart, which is a picture, birth chart is literally a snapshot. It's a picture that shows where all the planets in the sky were positioned at your precise moment of birth. When you are creating that chart, the chart literally delineates the 12 houses. So if you look at a birth chart, you'll notice it's got like 12 pie-shaped segments in the chart. And those 12 segments are correlated to the 12 houses. Now, there are different house systems that you can use when creating a birth chart. You can use whole house systems, you can use equal house systems, you can use Placidus house systems, and there's no right or wrong system to use. It depends on the astrologer, how that astrology was trained. It also depends on what feels resonant to the person who's creating the chart. And the reason why that last piece is so important is because I use Placidus. That's the system that I was trained with. I think it's a system that's more realistic and accurate when it comes to doing forecast readings. That's why I personally like it. But you may find that your planet and where everything was in your chart shifts when you change house systems. And so that's why it's important to, research the different systems, see which one feels more resonating with you, and that's the system that you can use. I don't use whole house to answer the question. I use Placidus.
Okay, thank you for that. We've got a couple questions here in the audience. Henrietta wants to know, just in general, what's happening with Aquarius.
I'm going Actually, I am overly ecstatic for Aquarians this year. We've got Jupiter and Saturn in the sign of Aquarius most of the year. Jupiter will dip into Pisces for like a hot minute this summer and then dip back out soon after. Um, and so for Aquarians this year, this is a year that sees a lot of growth, a lot of opportunity, a lot of overcoming of challenges and restrictions and limitations. And the reason why this is so important is because when, these planets, Pluto, Saturn, and even Jupiter last year were in the sign of Capricorn, this was affecting Aquarians in ways that were very subconscious, ways that were very much beneath the surface. And a lot of Aquarians may have had a very difficult time last year, just in terms of mental health and inner fears and doubts and insecurities that were just being triggered left and right last year. And so this particular year sees a lot of Aquarians coming out of this fog, coming out of this low cycle, and in a way that feels confident, in a way that feels clear, in a way that feels, enlightened. And this is going to be energy that really propels you forward when it comes to personal goals and ambitions throughout the year. So this is a good year for 2021 for Aquarians.
Okay, I know all the Aquarians are all going, woo, woo, woo. That's good to know. Does that also apply to people who have like Aquarius as their rising sign or as their moon sign, or is that only for people born under the sun sign of Aquarius?
Definitely people born under the sun sign and people born with their rising in Aquarius.
And they're rising. Okay. We got another question here. Jamila. Hey, cuz, what's up? What do you see for Sagittarius for 2021 in general?
So interestingly, the eclipses this year fall on the Sagittarius Gemini cusp or axis, I mean. Sagittarius and Gemini, they're opposite signs in the zodiac, on the zodiac wheel. Okay. And so as eclipses shift signs every 18 months, right now the eclipse cycle is playing out along the Sagittarius Gemini axis. So there's going to be a lunar eclipse in Sagittarius on May 26th of this year, and then a solar eclipse in Sagittarius on December 4th of this year. And the fact that Sagittarians have eclipses affecting them personally, and then of course in their opposite side of Gemini, makes this a very personal year. Especially when it comes to how Sagittarians are navigating the world of relationships, how Sagittarians are connecting with the significant others in their lives, how Sagittarians are building relationships with themselves. You may find that 2021 sees a lot of emphasis on self-growth, self-development, especially as it pertains to your connections with important others.
Okay. All right, Sagittarius, did you hear that? Okay, there's a question here that's about career, just general. Of course, a Capricorn is going to ask about career. Not the most Capricorn question ever, but Ashley wants to know, what can Capricorns expect in their careers this year as far as career advancement? I want to give Ashley a prize for the most Capricorn question.
That is like legit the most Capricorn question ever.
That's the most.
Letting us know, Ashley, who you are.
If anybody's going to ask about career advancements, that's going to be a Capricorn.
And I almost want to be like, really, do you need to know? Because Capricorns are hella ambitious. Like, y'all are successful at everything. So what kind of question is that?
You know what? Let me modify Ashley's question. I think she means how much advancement are Capricorns going to have this year, because all Capricorns are always about advancement.
Exactly. Well, so Ashley, typical to Capricorn form, you can have success, okay? As far as some squirrely moments throughout the year, we do have a full moon coming up this weekend in the sign of Libra on Sunday. And so you may find that, full moons bring completion. So things kind of, tend to wrap up or come full circle during the time of a full moon. And so this is going to bring some level of shift or culminating event for you on the career front. Okay. And so whether it's a project that's ending, a role that's ending, an assignment that's ending, you may experience some activity the few days following that full moon, or even now leading up to the full moon. And then when we reach the end of September, for about the first 3 weeks of October, Mercury will be retrograde in the sign of Libra. And so all of the signs or all of the planets do what's called a retrograde. A retrograde planet gives the illusion of orbiting the sun backwards. And when that happens, the things that that planet represents in astrology go a little funky. And so Mercury represents communication, technology, transportation, information, and astrology. And so when that planet is retrograde, our gadgets stop working, our cell phone starts acting up, misunderstandings, misinformation. And so it's a funky period, not the end of the world. Mercury retrogrades at least 3 to 4 times a year.
Right.
End of September into October, Mercury will be retrograde in the sign of Libra. This will impact Capricorn and Capricorn risings on the career front. And so you can expect some delays, some setbacks, some challenges, some misunderstandings involving your work, entrepreneurial endeavors, other types of professional ambitions. These delays will probably be like nothing for you, Ashley, because Capricorns are bosses, naturally speaking.
Right.
There'll still be delays, and they'll shift forward by the time we close out October, entering November. So those are the main things playing out for you career-wise.
By the way, Marissa said, I'm a Capricorn, and I wanted to ask that question too. Yeah. So we have a really good question here from Karina. She says, as a novice to this subject, I don't quite understand how or why a person's birth date, time of day they were born, etc., dictates what will happen in their lives. It seems strange to generalize a whole group of people in this way when people are also very different with differing experiences that can create specific outcomes. Not being super skeptical or contrary, I'm just trying to learn. So basically she's saying, how can we just say there's 12 groups of people and that everything that's happening for one person in that group that's like happening for all Capricorns or this, or all Leos are going through that, or all Aries are going through it. How can they do that? How does astrology work beyond the 12? There are these 12.
Yeah.
How can that be when everybody's so different and we all have these different things?
Yeah.
Great question.
So this is why, yeah, it's a great question. And this is why you want to get an astrology reading. This is why you want a consulting astrologer to pull your birth chart that will reveal to you not just where the sun is when you were born, but where all of the planets in the universe were located at your moment of birth. And the reason why that's so important is because no two charts look alike unless you literally are a twin. And even twins that are born, minutes apart can have different charts. So yes, there is this difference between the generalization of people, but when you're getting an astrological chart reading and someone is pulling your information based on your specific birth details, that is information specific to you. All of the planets describe different aspects of our lives. All of the planets are positioned in different areas of your chart when you're born. And so that's really what astrology is. It's not just looking at zodiac signs, looking at these 12 signs and generalizing people. It's actually looking at a snapshot of where planet alignments were positioned at your precise moment of birth and giving you information based off of your specific chart. Uh-oh. Mila is frozen. I am not. So I'm not sure what's happening here. I can't hear you, nor can I see you. Can't hear or see you, Jamila. Hey, Will, what's going on? I can see some of these questions, but I don't see Jamila, nor do I hear Jamila. Can you guys see and hear me? I don't know if you guys can see and Okay, I'm seeing a whole bunch of yeses, so that means that I am still here, but Jamila is not. Okay, okay, cool. All right. Well, hopefully Jamila will be back. So let's see. Trying to look through some of your questions here. We talked about Capricorn. We talked about Sagittarius. Is there anything in general across all the signs that perhaps we should avoid during this time? That's a good question. And I would say if there's anything that you across all zodiac signs should avoid during this time, it would be limiting yourself. Avoid limiting yourself. Avoid restricting yourself from opportunities this year, especially when it comes to any kind of personal changes or decisions that you're trying to make for yourself. I feel like 2020 kind of taught us things about ourselves that we didn't know, realizations about our strengths, our powers, our inherent worthiness, I think, in many ways. And so, if there's anything that you should avoid this year, it's doubting yourself, limiting yourself, making assumptions about things, and really giving yourself permission to rebel against the status quo. And I think that's really important with this Aquarian energy afoot. We are, being given a bit more courage, if you will, to go against the grain. And so that would be something I would advise all astrologers, or not all astrologers, all members of the zodiac to do. And that is go against the grain, be different, be unconventional. Don't restrict yourself to things that you feel like you can only do. So that's a really good question. Let's see. Business moves for Virgos. Um, well, interestingly, this is the season for many Virgos to begin asserting themselves when it comes to certain ambitions, certain entrepreneurial endeavors, professional aims. You have a lot of cosmic support. You may find, especially, and this is for Virgos in general, of course, I'm not looking at specific charts, but you may find that as we move towards this eclipse season, with the solar eclipse that's hitting in the sign of Gemini this June, that's going to be a really auspicious event for Virgos and Virgo rising. So you've got a lot of cosmic support really now as we move into eclipse season, shifting into the month of June, that can bring a lot of reward for any kind of hard work or effort that you're putting out there when it comes to your career and your profession. So now is a really potent window of opportunity moving into that solar eclipse on June 10th of this year that can really propel a lot of Virgos forward when it comes to their work. This is so weird without Jamila. Anything for Leos? Okay, wait, I see something, and then I'll come back to anything for Leos. I am a Leo, so I'm going to answer that question. I think Jamila is making her way back. I saw something. Anything for Leos? Hey!
Hey! There's always something with this technology. So thank you everyone for sticking with me.
I'm like, this is
I can see you on my phone, but my connection from the laptop from where I'm running this, well, long story short, I'm back. Thank you for holding it down so long. Thank you for holding it down while I was like lost in cyberspace, clawing my way back to the internet.
I'm glad you made it back.
Oh my God.
Someone was asking a question about anything for Leo. So I'll answer that real quick. Leos, this is a year for relationships for Leos as well. And I said just as much about Sagittarius. This is definitely true for Leos. Saturn and Jupiter are in the sign of Aquarius, which is Leo's opposite sign. And Leos, listen, I'm going to keep it real for you, okay? When I say this is a year for relationships, I don't mean this is the year when you meet Prince Charming and you have this wonderful love affair and it becomes happily ever after. I mean, this is the year when you work on your stuff. So, whatever it is that is inhibiting you from cultivating the relationship that you want, whatever it is that is blocking you from meeting the right partners, whether these are your own fears, relationship patterns, or behaviors, this is the year where you're doing the work. You're working on yourself, you're working on your relationships with important others, putting forth the effort as needed. For lack of a better phrase, this is kind of like a shit or get off the pot influence on the
She
relationship
said,
front.
"Should get off the pot." You know that's right.
Yeah.
So
And so that's it for you Leos
there's
out there.
a couple of people had a similar question that I wanted to ask. What's the deal with cusps? And it's a common
Yeah.
question because people say sometimes, I'm born on the cusp. Does that mean I'm both signs? Am I one or the other? What exactly is a cusp?
Yeah. So a cusp is when, as the axis of the Earth is making its rotation, a cusp is when you find the sun kind of hedged in between two different signs. Okay. The fact of the matter is, however, the sun is never really technically in between two different or in two different signs. And so that's why while you can be born on the cusp of a sign, you're either one sign or the other. And what determines that is your time and place of birth. Okay. I am a Leo Cancer cusp. And I know someone who has the same birthday as me that was born halfway across the world, and they're technically a Cancer. I'm a Leo, they're technically a Cancer, but we have the same birthday. So
Okay.
you can never be, in between two signs. You're always one sign or the other. But when you are born on the cusp, you definitely embody traits of both signs. And you may find that there are other planets throughout your full astrological birth chart that are placed in the sign that you're on the cusp of. So I'm a Leo sun, but I've got Mercury in Cancer, I've got Mars in Cancer. So I have some Cancer energy in my chart, and I definitely relate, yeah, and I definitely relate to both signs. So that's what it means to be on the cusp.
Okay,
And
so
it's funny because I just had a reading with someone who was like, I don't know if I'm a Libra or a Scorpio. Every time I read the newspaper, it tells me one thing or the other. And then we pulled her chart with her time of birth, and she was like, yes, I'm a Libra. I
I was
can
about to tell you,
totally.
I know they're a Libra because they just asked the question like they can't decide, and that.
Right? That's Scorpio sign right there. You must
I'm
be a
like
Libra.
that's a Libra kind of question. So I
Yep.
have a question for you, Tracy. When did you fall in love with astrology? When did that happen for you? How were you exposed to astrology yourself? And were you a kid? Was this something that you connected with as later in life as a grown up? How did you
Yeah.
fall in love with astrology, and how old were you when that happened?
I was I was probably 8 or 9. So first of all, astrology runs in my family. So I have a lot of family members on my dad's side who were seers,
Mhm.
astrologers, tarot readers. My dad himself was strongly into seeking and spiritual knowledge. And so it's in my veins, it's in my blood. What started for me was a very innocent interest in classical myth and archetypes.
Okay.
And I didn't even know that that's what I was getting into at first. I really enjoyed reading stories from myth. So much so that I actually wanted to name my kids after like Greek and Roman gods at one point. But I didn't realize that I was getting into like archetypes and moving along that astrology journey in the process. So it started off for me really young and just kind of evolved as I got older. I never intended or aspired to do astrology for a living.
Okay.
It just the universe aligned itself, and here I am, and I love it. And so that's kind of how it started, very organically.
Now, is there something that tends to show up in a chart of a professional astrologer that indicates that they're predisposed to having an interest in astrology?
That's a really good question. I would look to planets in either the third house, especially in signs like Scorpio and or Aquarius. Similar planets in the eighth or 12th. Third house is the house of, learning and education and knowledge. This is the house where we want to absorb as much information as possible. And when you've got planets here, especially that are Uranian in influence, or Aquarius energy, or even Scorpion energy, this kind of probing analytical energy combined, there's a futurism that comes with it. Same is true with planets in the eighth house, which are this house of psychological depth, or the 12th house, which is the house of our intuitive self. When you've got planets that are of a futuristic Uranian influence in these houses, I think that's what is going to predispose folks to interest in astrology.
So you just mentioned something about the 12th house being the house of intuition. That's where our intuition shows up. So what sign would you say is most intuitive, just naturally, based on just the fact that the 12th house is the house of intuition? Is there one sign that's naturally more intuitive than that, or more than one sign?
I would say Pisces.
Pisces.
Pisces suns, or rising, or moon. Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. And so a lot of astrologers believe that Pisces kind of embodies the traits of each of the signs that precede it. And so it's what makes the sign very transcending. Pisces is like this Zen master Buddha of the zodiac. So this is a sign that is very acutely, intuitively aware of the emotional energy of others, the emotional struggles of others. This is a sign that picks up on the emotional, these are the natural empaths. They pick up on the emotional energy of everyone. This is true for water signs in general, which are Pisces, Cancer, and Scorpio. But Pisces is definitely much more attuned to a kind of divine energy, and serves as a vessel, if you will, when it comes to intuitive messages and premonitions and psychic abilities that come through. So someone who is Pisces rising, moon in Pisces, someone who has a strong 12th house influence or Neptunian influence, Neptune rules the sign of Pisces in astrology. These are some examples of where you're going to be predisposed to a lot of intuitive gifts.
So, okay, so I'm a professional psychic. I'm all in my intuition. I don't know where Pisces might show up in my chart, but I know I'm not Pisces rising, sun, or moon. So is there a place, aside from being born under the sign of Pisces and ruling intuition, is there a place where in the chart where intuitive gifts tend to show up? Or does that mean like you have a lot of planets in the 12? Could you somebody's chart and be like, this person is intuitive?
So I believe your rising is Sagittarius, right?
Yes.
And I believe your Neptune in Sagittarius is in your 12th house.
Okay, I can't remember the level of detail.
I think I remember. I don't know if that's sad or what. Like, I totally remember the details of your chart.
But that's what you do. That's what you do. That's like an architect saying, yes, I remember the structure of this building.
Right, exactly.
Absolutely.
I'm pretty sure you have Neptune close to your ascendant in your 12th house.
Okay.
So Neptune, anything that's Neptunian in influence, right? Because Neptune rules Pisces in astrology. Neptune in the 12th house. 12th house is ruled by Pisces because Pisces is the 12th sign of the zodiac. So these are going to be things that, really bring a strong intuitive gift into consciousness.
I think this is a topic that I want to explore with you more in depth in another live stream, because I think we could really get into that, being that I talk a lot about intuition, the power of intuition and activating intuition. I really do want to, of course we're going to have you back, because that's just how we do. I love these conversations that we have. So we are, it is time for us to start to wrap up. However, I know it goes fast, especially when I fell into a black hole time warp. Thank you for holding it down for me while I was gone. I could see you on my phone. Yeah, I'm like, she's still answering questions. Thank God. Okay, so I have questions for you. At the end of our live stream, I always want to ask you these hilarious questions.
I love it.
So, which sign is most likely to run away from home as a kid?
Oh, probably Sagittarius. Sagittarius needs to be free. Sagittarius doesn't like being caged in. And so Sagittarius feels like it can't fly its wings. It's going to run. It's going to dip.
All right. So, what historical figure, living or dead, do you most admire, and what is their sign?
Oh, that's hard. I mean, there's so many. Gosh, what historical figure? That's a hard question. I mean, I'm looking in my room to see who I have. I've got Malcolm X on my wall right now. He was a Taurus.
Yeah, Earth sign. Yeah, yeah. Earth
Yeah. And definitely, ooh, this one's hard. I got my grandmothers on my ancestral altar. Although I don't know all of their signs, Capricorn and Gemini. Those are my maternal and paternal grandmothers. That one's funky. There's so many. There's so many.
Okay, so another question. Which sign is most likely to be outside yelling, "Get off my lawn" at the neighborhood kids?
I mean, I want to say Scorpio because that's what my mom did. But probably, gosh, I would say probably Aries, probably Scorpio. These are combative energies.
Okay.
So when you're messing with their stuff, you're messing with their stuff.
Okay.
So if you're supposed to be on the lawn playing, you need to get off.
All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. What sign is most likely to be a skeptic about astrology?
That's a good question. I would say Aquarius, interestingly. I think Aquarians would have a natural interest in astrology. I think that they would definitely be curious to learn about it.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to how they rationalize and analyze this concept of astrology, I think they would be the most skeptical. I think Scorpios would be very resistant, and I've experienced that. I have a lot of Scorpios that don't want to get a reading from me, and I know why. Because I would tell them some stuff, and they would be like, "How do you know?" So I think Scorpios may very well be the most resistant to it. Capricorns too, skeptical. Capricorn is a sign that's very much, if I can't see it and I can't touch it, then it must not exist. And so I think Capricorns may also be the more so skeptical of the zodiac signs.
Okay. I just reading this question from Leisha. It says, "I'm Aries sun and Scorpio moon, and I'm yelling at you to get off my lawn." Kelly is a Scorpio. She says she wants one. So I presume that the Scorpios who are in this chat are probably less resistant than a typical Scorpio, or else they wouldn't be in here on a Friday night. Right?
Yeah.
So, okay. So in a previous live, I asked you about the sign of the best lover from your personal experience. So now I'm going to ask you a slightly different question. What's the sign of the lover who first broke your heart?
Ooh.
The sign he was.
Wow. The sign of the lover who first broke my heart was
The person who first broke your heart was what sign?
Was a Leo.
A Leo? Wow, yeah. Really?
Yeah, it was a Leo. Yeah.
I'm Aquarius.
Oh, really?
Yes, very attached.
Oh, but Leo and Aquarius are opposite sides. They're similar in a lot of ways. They're like, opposite sides to the same exact coin. So, yeah, I get it. Aquarians are, Aquarians, I have to always kind of, reframe stories around Aquarians because Aquarians tend to spend a lot of time in their heads.
Okay.
And why they tend to be accused of being detached or impersonal or aloof. They also don't really see the value in letting emotions kind of dictate, right? They're very rational and cerebral people. So it's very much, why don't we think about this or analyze this or talk about this as opposed to getting emotional about it. Whereas Cancers swim in the feeling world. And so, exactly. Like I could never tell you to not be emotional, right? Because that's your superpower. Your sensitivities are your strengths. So it makes sense that, there would be some friction between Aquarius and Cancer.
Yes. Okay, I'm going to ask you one more question.
Is Mercury retrograde now? No, it's not. Uh-oh, Jamila, you froze. I don't know if you all can still see and hear me. Can't see or hear Jamila. Oh no, okay. Yes, Jamila, you are frozen again. I promise y'all, Mercury is not retrograde right now, so. Oh. Not Barbados internet. All right, thanks, Karen. I'm glad you guys can see and hear me. I'm like sitting on the edge of my seats waiting for this last question. It's like dun dun dun, and then she disappears. All right, cool. Thanks, Latonda. Thanks for letting me know. These are really good questions. When am I teaching? Uh, I don't know. Well, actually, no, I do know. That's not true. So there is this astrologer, a colleague of mine named Stormy Grace, who has just launched a YouTube academy that focuses on astrology. So it's a year's worth of free astrology classes. I'm so excited about this and really excited to be a part of it. Classes just started in March, and there will be a class every month. And she's got these amazing teachers from the astrology community that will be giving these free lessons. And so I will be teaching a course in August on how to create your own horoscope. And I'm super pumped for that. And so that's a class I'm teaching. As far as other teaching classes, I'm not sure yet. I have taught classes in the past, and they're always a lot of fun. They also take a lot of work. So Stormy Grace YouTube Academy, free astrology classes, teaching in August. Definitely check that out. Jamila, you're back.
I think so. I think I'm having an out-of-body experience that's translated with technology. Somebody said, dang, in Barbados. Let me say, I'm not going to blame this on Barbados. I think it's my laptop because I can still see and type to you guys on my phone, which means that there was some connection unless it switched to data. Anyway, I do want to
turn to needles with this last question.
I know. It's like, okay, I don't know what's going on. But again, Tracy, thank you for holding it down. She's so smooth. She's just like, oh, we can't see Jamila. I just take some questions from the audience because I'm bad like that. I'm bad like that. Good Lord. Thank you guys for putting up with the technological issues. I appreciate you. I'm also going to take that as a sign that we really need to wrap up. So I'm going to ask you, Tracy, how can people get in touch with you? Because you mentioned that you do private sessions one-on-one, and that you do personal astrological consultations. What kind of readings do you offer? And how can people get in touch with you?
So I offer personal astrology readings that examine the full astrology chart and what it says about you. I do forecast readings that look ahead over the next 6 months, over the next year. I offer relationship readings, coaching packages. Right now I'm doing a COVID bundle of 3 full-length sessions at a super, super discounted rate. I launched this last year in response to the pandemic just because a lot of people were needing some guidance and support. And I wanted to empower them by reminding them of their inherent power, of course. I think you said something like that too. And so that special is still going strong. And you can just visit my website, which is my name, TraceyLRogers.com. That's TraceyLRogers.com.
Yep, it's on the screen right now so people can find you. Yeah. And how can they find you on social media?
I am Trey to you, Trae to you on Instagram. Tracy L. Rogers, Astrology Life Coaching on Facebook. Those would probably be the easiest platforms to find me.
Okay. If you all learned something today from Tracy, please consider booking an appointment with her. You could do that 3 bundle and 3 friends get together and get a really good deal, or you can use them for yourself and do follow-ups. But if you learned something today, please drop a coin in Tracy's pocket. I'm putting up her Venmo and PayPal up on the screen. If you learn anything from mine, you could drop a coin in my pocket too. I'm gonna put up my Cash App and PayPal on here. We're out here surviving blackout time warps in order to bring you this love. I'm just kidding. But seriously though, come holler at me. Most of the names that I see in here, as far as people who are commenting, are people whose names I've seen before. You can reach me online at inspiredjamila.com. So I see a number of clients here. What I do is I deliver messages from spirit, from God, from angels, from your ancestors, deceased loved one, yours and mine. Spirit guides, they gang up on me for me to share insight and information with you. But every once in a while, I like to bring my girl Tracy in here to give this astrological perspective. I always learn something every time. And we always have a bunch of fun with that. So you got another testimonial in here, girl. Someone says Tracy's sessions are the best. Will of the State. I co-sign on that. There's only a handful of astrologers that I trust, and Tracy is at the top of that list. She makes things so easy to understand, and I appreciate her so much. Thank you, Tracy, for coming and joining us on this. Across the mile, we're like, what, 2,000 miles apart? Yeah. But yeah, it's so close on the screen. Like we
made it.
Oh, Kelly wants to know, do you have Zelle? Do you take Zelle payments?
I don't even know what that is. What's Zelle? What's that?
Oh, it's through your bank account. So it's a way for people to send money through the banks. The banks decided that they were losing money on the PayPal and the Cash App peer-to-peer transactions, so they created their own network. You can, you know what? You can Zelle me and I'll Zelle it. No, for real though. If you have Cash App but don't have the ones that she wants, put her name and you can Cash App me and I'll make sure that she gets the whole amount if you like. Or you could just text her, or I'm sorry, you can email her or contact her through her website. And if there's another way that you want to, somebody just send me a PayPal. Thank you. Oh, I see who that is. Thank you, hon. Love, love, love. So I just want to thank you. I'm putting up some of these comments. People have loved this from you today. I have a question.
Yeah.
Interested. I appreciate you, Tracy, Jamila. You gave awesome tools to cope. I want to ask everyone, what's your big takeaway from today? What's something that you learned, whether it was about how astrology works, whether it's about the energy of Aries, the Aries season with all the planets happening in Aries right now? Amy asked that question about Aries season, but we answered that earlier. What's your takeaway from today? What did you learn? Or what was your favorite moment from our conversation? I always want to know that kind of stuff because it helps me know what kind of questions to ask when I have Tracy back or any other guests, what kind of questions you want to know. Let's see. Some comments are coming in. Danielle says, thank you. This was awesome. Veronica says, Tracy, you have a beautiful smile. Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Kristen Price says, thank you. Kristen Price says, thank you both. Queen of Sheba says, thank you. Marissa says her takeaway is not to limit ourselves this year. Marissa Capricorn. Yes.
Yeah.
Anitra says that we can breathe.
Yes, don't forebode joy. And what I mean by that is just allow yourself to breathe and experience life again without waiting for the other shoe to drop. Last year was a really traumatizing year for so many reasons. So give yourself grace and breathe a bit more freely.
Yes, Kitty says her takeaway is to stay open for the things that are coming. Ahene also says to not limit herself. Sharon says her big takeaway is she needs to visit TracyLRogers.com. Veronica says a better future for all the world. Sade says thank you. Yes, thank you, Sade. Enjoy your evening. Let's see. Karen says she learned the meaning of cusps, houses versus signs. Very good. All right. Tanya said that this year is going to be a good year for us Aquarians.
Mhm.
J.E. Joyce says, learning about astrology and how it related to the transition in the administration. All right. Lou says, congrats to Tracy on her appearance on CBS Sunday Morning. Oh, by the way, if you all haven't seen Tracy's interview on CBS Sunday Morning, how can they find that? Can they find that on your website, the link to watch that?
Yes, so it's on my website. You can also go to CBS Sunday Morning's website, and it's there in their archive. But if you go to my website and go to my About page, which is right at the top tab of my site, you'll see it there linked.
Okay, thank you for that. Zoe says, eager to learn more and will schedule with both of you for further guidance. All right.
Hey.
Chris, inspired to learn. Jamila says, thank you. I enjoyed myself. Thank you, love. Portia takeaway is love and laughter among friends. Yes. Pat Avens, Rev Pat says, I'm intrigued about not being in the age of Aquarius, and wonderful session. Love to you both. Yes. Raynell said, I heard her say the shit or get off the pot. I love her. Veronica, who's an Aquarius, and my takeaway is that this year for me is going to be awesome. Yes. Even if you're not an Aquarius and you're not an Aries, you can make this an awesome year. You can.
Yeah.
You may not be able to change the planets, but you can change how you respond to what's going on in your life. You can change what you focus on and what you choose to focus your thoughts on. You can choose how you engage with other people. You can choose how you engage in self-care. So I look at astrology the same way I look at the weather. Like, what's the environment out there? And govern myself accordingly. I know it might rain. I'll pack an umbrella. I know Mercury's in retrograde. I know I'm going to double check before I hit reply all and end up, emailing a whole bunch of folks that I didn't mean to email. And I give myself more time for traffic, more. If I have to sign something, I have a whole bunch of extra pairs of eyes to see if I can reschedule that. So there's all kinds of things that you can learn about astrology, but you still have to make good, sound decisions and love yourself. At the end of the day, it don't matter what the planets are doing. If you don't love yourself, you're going to have a shit year.
Yeah, and I appreciate you saying that, because I always try to remind folks at the end of every astrology reading I give, your free will is still very much kept intact. And so you can use the information to make informed decisions for yourself. And that is going to be based on how you respond to the information you receive. That's the one thing you can control, and that's where you want to focus your energy.
Yes, thank you. So I hate saying goodbye, so I'm not going to say goodbye. I'm going to say, girl, we're going to catch up later.
Cute.
Whether we do it publicly or privately. And if you're watching on the replay or who stuck it out to the end, I always want to give some extra love to the people who missed the live but came and found us on the replay, and you watched us and you type in your comments, and I read all the comments. I go back and read every last one whenever it is posted, and I appreciate every last comment. So I thank you. Yeah. All right, you guys, have a beautiful Friday. Happy spring. Love yourself. I love you all. I love that you all take the time to come hang out with us out here in Facebook and YouTube land on a Friday night. What can I say? I feel the love. And Tracy, love. I love you. We'll catch up.
Oh, so much. Right. Thank you again.
Thank you, guys. Have a great evening. Bye.